when the divine masculine and the divine feminine experience triggers, it is not necessarily the two of you triggering each other. Because remember, there's always that divine love and that divine light between you guys. But what's happening is old traumas are being triggered that you are then relaying on the other person or projecting onto the other person. Or there's old pain patterns or habits or behaviors. Separation, that physical separation in the human experience can feel extremely painful because you're feeling separate from yourself. However, over the course of the journey, that is what you heal. That separation is actually divine protection. Your masculine is protecting you because of what they are healing and what they're experiencing. Or you are protecting them because of what you're healing and what you're experiencing. It is protection so that you don't trigger one another, so that you don't project onto one another and create more conflict. Because the two of you always want to be in the energy of love and harmony. That is what your truest desire is. To be in the energy of love and harmony and partnership together. Trauma cannot be healed together in a twin flame connection. It has to be done individually. Because otherwise, you just keep repeating the trauma onto each other. You and your divine counterpart have experienced trauma within the same category. It just looks different in the physical experience. You might have experienced it from the education system. Your divine masculine may have experienced it from the medical system. But it's the same energy of injustice. It's the same theme of whatever it was. Whatever that trauma was. It could have been abandonment. Maybe you were abandoned within the education system, or you were abandoned within the medical system. You experience it with different players, with different people, with different experiences overall. But the theme is the same. The core wound then becomes the same. The trauma is the same. And because underneath the surface, it is the same, you cannot heal together because you are both healing. Because otherwise you're going to just continue to come together and trigger that same wound. This is the energy. This is the human experience. This is your union. Can you guys see that? Yeah, this is your union, the Two of Cups. The Empress is the divine feminine in the physical. The Emperor is the divine masculine in the physical. And then you have your higher selves, your soul selves, always in union. It's like this pyramid that's happening here. Divine masculine triggers the divine feminine. We're going to do it this way. Divine feminine triggers the divine masculine too, but I'm going to speak from my own experience. Divine masculine triggers the divine feminine. And even though she feels that home, that love, her trauma is triggered. Let me ask Spirit for an example that many of you have experienced. Ghosting. Let's do ghosting. Ghosting is where many divine masculines have gone silent, just stopped communicating out of the blue with no explanation. Divine feminines can do this too sometimes, but we most often see this from the divine masculine within this journey, and that's what we call the runner-chaser, where in the beginning of the journey, the masculine ghosts or runs or stops communicating or doesn't communicate like they used to, and divine feminine is trying to chase after. Well, through her healing, she has learned to honor herself. She has learned to not abandon herself. She's learned not to chase. She's learned to stand in her energy, in her power, in her strength, in her recognition. I don't need to chase anything. What am I actually chasing after? So that's where she goes down the spiral, so to speak, of shadow work. And she does her energy healing. Oh, this is why I'm chasing, because I'm feeling abandoned. This is why ghosting affects me so much, because I'm feeling lack from my counterpart, because I am believing that he doesn't love me, because I'm believing that his lack of communication means that I'm not worthy, because I'm believing, based on past patterns and traumas, that there's abandonment, that there's rejection, that there's neglect. It's not the full truth, but divine masculine is acting in such a way that it's triggering the divine feminine in order to heal her own wounds and her own patterns. These core wounds stem mostly from childhood, from past life experiences, etc. Divinely triggered to make the divine feminine rise in her strength. Say, nope, that's not acceptable. If you don't want to talk to me, you don't have to talk to me. I'm not chasing this. I'm not abandoning myself. I'm not dishonoring myself. I'm not disrespecting myself. And if you're going to do any of those things to me, then I can go my separate ways. Well, what happens then? By you standing in your power, it ignites the divine masculine to step forward. This is what we're talking about in Love from Both Sides, where the divine feminine has to learn to let go. has to learn to release that attachment, and that attachment is that chaser energy. So as she learns to release that attachment, the divine masculine has been doing their own inner work of their own self-worth, of their own abandonment wounds, but it's coming from a different angle. It's coming from a different side, where they perhaps have been afraid of rejection, or they perhaps have been afraid of abandonment from a different angle. And so as the divine feminine is releasing that pressure, that container of pressure and need and attachment, divine masculine is feeling that release of pressure, and they're acknowledging themselves and saying, oh, this is what I actually want. And so that's when they're able to rise in themselves. Now, I'm not articulating the journey fully. I've talked about this a lot in my sacred channelings and in my readings here on the channel. This is just a quick metaphor and understanding of what the masculine and the feminine experience. They experience it from different angles, from different perspectives, but it's the same energy. It's the same energy. It's not a game. Let me put it that way. It's not a game that you two are playing. It's an energy exchange. So what's happening as the divine feminine is saying, I'm just going to honor my path and focus on my path rather than focusing so much on you and what you're doing in the connection. What happens is the energy is relieved and released. The pressure is relieved and released. And that's what was causing the divine masculine to kind of go over here and go silent and reflect and do their own inner healing, because they've always been doing their own inner healing. Because you're standing in your power, it gives the masculine the opportunity to step into theirs. Distorted feminine energy is chasing and chasing and chasing. Distorted feminine energy, it's not just chasing, she's actually running from the connection in a different way. She's running from herself by chasing after the masculine. So we can say that divine masculine is the runner, but in essence, he's just asking the feminine to really step into her power. That's when he steps into his. He's allowed to step into his. Being in her divine feminine essence is where she is able to feel safe enough to surrender to the leadership of the divine masculine. I'm saying leadership and not control. It's a very different thing. There's a huge distinction here. So she had been chasing the masculine, but in essence, she had been running from herself, from her own inner wholeness. And part of this journey for her has been realizing, I have both masculine and feminine energies within myself. I don't need something outside of myself or someone outside of myself to fulfill me. And the more she realizes this, the more the masculine is healing too, the more I feel like these energies are smiling, like the higher selves are smiling here, like, yes, you're finally getting it. The more you're able to come into an equal partnership with beautiful harmony and reciprocity, because you're not feeling lack within yourself in any sense of the word. And that is what true union is all about. There is no lack in union. But you had to discover that for yourself, and they had to discover that for themselves. And part of that is they triggered you, you experienced trauma, and so you had to heal individually. You can't keep seeking to heal where the trigger is occurring. Let me put it this way. You can't keep seeking to heal by seeking outside of yourself for the healing. You can have the support of your masculine, which you always do. You can have the support of your family and soul tribe, but your healing is truly up to you. Now, divine feminine heals her traumas in a little bit of a different way than divine masculine too, and that's part of why you have to go on your individual healing paths as well, why it looks like separation in the physical experience. Divine feminine does her healing work very much in the energetic realms. Divine masculines, they internalize a lot, they go into hermit mode a lot, they do their shadow work almost in silence. Divine feminines, she processes a little bit different. And that's also why, so that you don't keep triggering each other with the same wounds. That's why you heal separately, you heal differently, but you're always on the surface healing together.